What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode here on Above Average. If you're new to the channel, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. As you can see, we have our very first special guest on Above Average. He's brought smiles to millions of faces across Canada over the past decade. His puns have aged like a nice Italiano fine wine. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Gene Principe. How you doing today, Gene?
I'm doing good. I'm glad you didn't whine about my puns because there are people who do that. Trevor, a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, 100%, Gene, 100%. Yeah, so for those watching at home, just going to ask Gene some Oilers-related questions. I've been a huge fan of this guy. Obviously, he knows the behind the scenes more than anyone. So what a privilege it is to have you on the show, man. And just, yeah, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I know you're a very busy man.
Yeah, no problem. You're more than welcome, Trevor.
Of course, right on. So let's get this thing going here. Right out of the gate, we'll take it back a few years. There was a stretch where the Oilers weren't, particularly doing the best. I grew up with it. Some people refer to it as the decade of darkness, and I'm just curious, how difficult was it to find the positive as a host? When all the Oilers were doing, was kind of losing at the time. Was it a struggle to, especially for what you do, because you're a very positive guy?
Well, first of all, thanks for saying that. I would say this, Trevor. It's funny because nowadays, as the Oilers play teams like, let's say, Anaheim or Columbus, or Chicago, San Jose, teams are in that sort of area where Edmonton was. And I sometimes, the game's over and the Oilers have won, and I go, were the Oilers like that? Like, were they in that kind of situation? And they were in the standings, but I never got a real negative vibe, which might sound weird, disappointing for sure, frustrated, but I never felt like the players or the team was negative, that they always were looking at what wasn't going right for them. For sure, those feelings were there, but I think that's a credit to the organization and the many coaches, general managers, and players, I guess, that I've been through my time, especially during that stint, that era that you spoke of. Just as easily as I could stop Darnell Nurse to talk today, I could stop Eric Brewer to talk, or pick a defenseman from Jason Smith, or up front, or Steve Stais, or pick a guy, any guy, and the results were different, but their approach, their respect, their professionalism was always there, even if back then there were more losses than wins.
If he wants to build something strong and sturdy that will last, you need a nail, and the Edmonton Oilers feel the same way with their nail.
Part of the decade of darkness coming for this next question. Nail Yakupov, he's gotten a lot of heat over the years. Brian Burke, he's been pretty vocal in his one-on-one interview he had with Nail back in 2012. For me personally, his first year with Ralph Kruger went really good, all things considered. He was just under, he wasn't a point per game, but 30 points, in 50 games played. It's not too bad, but where do you think it all went wrong with Nail? Like, if you from what you've seen, maybe you don't know, but did something happen that summer with the coaching change? Because he never really looked the same after his rookie season.
Great question. I still stay in touch with Nail a little bit on WhatsApp. Sometimes it's been a while, but during the pandemic, I shot him a message and just to sort of stay in touch with him. He might be, I certainly have had players, let's say you're in a coffee lineup or a sandwich lineup, and they'll buy a sandwich or something. But he specifically, I remember in Carolina, took myself, then play-by-play man Kevin Quinn, and then analyst Drew Remenda out for dinner. He said, "Hey, I want to take you guys out for dinner." And I really like Nail, and I think that year that you speak of, he was tied with, my memory might be off, with Jonathan Huberdeau for the points lead for rookies. And I think everybody felt that was a short year, the 48 games. And I think everybody went, wow, this is going to be great. And then there was a coaching change. It was Ralph Kruger at that time. And then Dallas Eakins came in. But I'm not sure. I don't know, what exactly happened, what changed, whether the league figured him out a bit, whether that first time run through, that I wouldn't call it first time lucky, because you don't put up those kind of numbers just through luck. I'm not sure what happened over the course of the next few years where it just kind of fell off. I used to often see Mr. and Mrs. Yakupov, his parents, because they moved here, here being Edmonton at the time, and really tried to give him a kind of a steady and comfortable home life. I mean, listen, just to go back, I mean, Nail broke Steve Stamkos' records in junior for the club in Sarnia. So, you know, there was no reason to think that he wasn't going to be at least a 30-goal scorer, maybe 40, who knows? So it's still a bit of a mystery. Last I checked, he's playing the KHL. And when I've messaged him or talked with him through social media, seems like he's pretty upbeat still and enjoying hockey. But it never worked out. It made Trevor just go down as a mystery as to, you know, other than maybe him specifically answering the question as to what happened after such a good start.
We win. Russia win. Russia better Canada. So see you next time.
Yeah, no, 100%. I was rooting for Nail like more than anyone when when Connor came in, the Mick Yak Poo line, like when that first started, they were looking really good right out of the gate. And then when Derek Roy was here in Edmonton, like they had a stint where he looked fine, and it just, I don't know what it was. Yeah, it's just one of those things. I guess it's the toughest league in the world for hockey, so it is what it is. So Gene, as much as you're a reporter, I'm assuming you're also a fan of the Oilers. How hard is it to not show your emotions during a broadcast, whether it's an amazing game or a devastating loss?
Very hard. I think I don't know if it's easier the older you get. I'm 56 now, and I started doing the Oilers games when I was 31, and I felt like I just was a fan who happened to have a camera and a microphone in his hand when I first began. And for sure, there's some behind-the-scenes fist pumps. And
for sure.
I mean, I'm happy for them. I think what happens, Trevor, over time is I'll always be an Oilers fan at heart. I grew up in Edmonton and celebrated those Stanley Cups back in the 80s into 1990. So I don't think you could just wipe a clean slate of your past. But when I'm on air, I try to be, I wouldn't say try to be professional, but I certainly don't try and look like I'm cheering for one team over another. I think also, Trevor, with age, maturity, and I guess experience, you end up finding players along the way that you like. I remember Jerome McGinley was with the Flames, right? And it was almost like if you grew up in Edmonton, you couldn't like anyone or anything about Calgary. But then you get to meet people and you think, he's a pretty good guy, right? And I know he's a St. Albert guy or other teams and other players go, you know what? Yeah, he plays on a team that theoretically you're supposed to dislike, but I can't dislike that person. And that also applies to, different coaches that I've met over the years. I use Calgary as an example, but it can apply really if you're an Oilers fan, then everybody's a rival in one way or the other. So in the beginning, it was a little bit of a challenge, but I find now, of course, I think one of the best feelings that I have when I'm broadcasting Oilers games is that feeling when they come off the ice after a big win. That's as close geographically and I guess emotionally as I get to being a member of the Edmonton Oilers, for lack of a better term. So that's a lot of fun, talking to an Oiler after a big win, a big goal, a big save. Whatever hand that they had in the victory is always a lot of fun as well. But, I have a lot of respect for the other teams in the league and the other players in the league. So I definitely try and play it right straight down the middle when I'm broadcasting.
Sure what it's like, but I'm going to give it a try right now. I think I'm like Connor.
Pretty cool, man. Yeah, that's awesome. I don't know how you do it. Like for me personally, I was at the first Battle of Alberta game this year, and after that loss, I don't know how you do it. I wouldn't have been able to. I just thought, oh, okay, that sucked. Let's go home. Let's shut her down. So good for you, man. It's awesome. You've been part of, Sportsnet. I'm pretty sure I read for over, 20 years, which is just amazing. Congratulations. That's awesome. You might have had some nerves back then, but I'm curious, do you get nervous before games now? Especially in the playoffs? I'd be like, what's that? I couldn't do it. How do you have nerves?
You know what, Trevor? Still, I remember broadcasting my first game in 1998 of the Oilers, and I'd been in television for 11 years at that point, and had done various assignments, including hosting Winnipeg Jets games when I lived in Winnipeg. But I remember that first game. It was in New York at Madison Square Garden. I mean, the Big Apple. It's the Oilers. It's the Rangers. Here's this Edmonton kid/young man at 31 making his own personal debut. And I remember just gripping that mic like I was holding on to it like it was a lifeline, and I was, out at sea, and it was a life jacket. That was my way of sort of gripping the moment. And I was for sure very nervous, and also a bit uncertain, right? It was another step, another move for my broadcast career. But, you fast forward now, and for sure, I still have those sort of little butterflies and a bit of nerves. But I think it's gone from the nerves being more than the confidence to flip-flopping now where I feel more confident, but still have some nerves.
It's called brine, so I'm going to just basically pickle juice. Can you hear me? How much time? Let me try this. Hang on. Oh.
So this is kind of a funny one. I've always been super curious of this, but how awkward are plane rides back home, from a game after a tough loss? Like, obviously you don't have to go into specifics, but are they generally pretty quiet, or are the players like, is Connor like, no boys, like, let's move on, there's no point in dwelling on this, or is it just a snooze fest, they're tired maybe? And exact opposite after a big win. Like, was Nuge, were the boys crushing beers last night, like after Nuge's big night? Or does Jay Woodcroft, settle them, keep them calm and composed?
Yeah, I assume they did after Ryan Nugent-Hopkins got to 100 points. I didn't see them, but I've seen, the highs and the lows. It's why it's such a cliche, or they are cliches about keeping even keel, and the highs not getting too high or the lows getting too low. I've seen both sides of it. We talked about what it was like, during those years when the Oilers struggled. And for sure, you wear the loss for a certain amount of time as you do a win, but then you do move on. And I always wondered when I first started, and I'd be on the bus with the team, it is quiet for sure. When they lose, it is quiet, as is the plane ride to a certain extent. I mean, I'm not sure what's the right amount of time to commiserate a loss or to celebrate a win. I don't know. There's no handbook. Is it 32 minutes? Is it an hour and 10 minutes? Like,
sure.
What are you supposed to do? And I think everybody takes the losses and the wins differently and handles them differently. But for sure, it's opposite results and opposite reactions. But I would say that over the years, because it is 82, that games that you deal with them for that moment, for that night, and when you wake up the next morning, you do move on, because chances are either you're playing that night or you're going to play the next night. Playoff series, of course, are different, and those are more emotional, and the mood swings are wider, longer, more telling. But again, you do have to move on. I mean, last year in the playoffs, the Oilers were down 3-2 to LA. How long do you concern yourself with Game 5 before you move to Game 6? Pretty quick, you have to.
Yeah.
You can't worry too much about the past, whether it's a win or loss. But it is an interesting dynamic that I find curious, just to see how people handle both sides of it. And really, it's as individualistic as their own style of play, and their results as a player is also how they are as a person.
It's really turned into a... He's turned into... That hurt.
So we all kind of know this Connor McDavid guy is pretty great, but Leon Draisaitl, I mean, for me personally, he's my favorite player. I'm repping his jersey right now. I think he's an absolute stud. Did you or did anyone in the Oilers organization think he was going to be like this good?
Wow, I would be a bit of a liar if I said that I thought Leon
you called it.
Times have 50 goals and would be pushing 120 plus points. I'm not sure I thought that. No, I would say that I thought he was a 100-point player, in that vicinity. As you know, Trevor, when he came in, he was more considered a passer. So the idea of him being a 50-goal scorer seemed, it was more maybe about 30 and 70 or 35 and 65 to get to 100 points than 50 or 55 and 55 the one season that he had 110 points. So unbelievable player. It is a treat to watch him, Connor, and the current edition of the Oilers.
Yeah.
You have a rink-side seat to the best, most exciting player in the NHL, and a guy who I think will be, probably one of the top 5 players all time, knock on wood, if he's able to kind of, stay healthy or avoid anything other than, minor aches and pains, a game here or 2 games there. And then as his sidekick, you've got another guy who I think is going to be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. That's going to be, an unbelievable player. I mean, I look at Connor currently with his results and on the verge of getting to 150 points as we tape this. And if he gets to 156, only 2 other guys will have had more points in a regular season. They're Lemieux and Gretzky. So when you think of all the hockey players that have played, to think that Connor could potentially have the 3rd most productive regular season of all of them, unbelievable. Then throw in Leon, who, Leon's a superstar.
Yeah.
For sure, his own right. And I remember, Trevor, a few years ago, how people were wondering, Leon's playing off the back of Connor. If he can't even drive his own line. And I never believed that. I thought, no, he just happens to be on a line with Connor. It doesn't mean he can't drive his own line. And some of the best things that the coaches over the course of the last few years did was to seem kind of strange, was to split them up, because they have just unbelievably developed on their own. And right now, the Oilers don't need to put them together. But if it's Game 7 of the series and they're down by a goal and it's do or die, you can throw them together knowing that they'll have chances are immediate success. But I got a lot of time for Leon also, not to elongate the answer. Remember, this is a guy who grew up in Germany where soccer is king, and so are some other sports. And he comes over here as a teenager. He doesn't go from Edmonton to Medicine Hat or to Swift Current. Those are big moves for young people and their families. This guy goes across the ocean and ends up in Prince Albert.
Yeah.
And look at what he's done. So amazing story, Leon, and a real nice young man.
Yeah, no, that's so cool to hear. Yeah, it's crazy. Like NHLPA, like they just voted, or he was voted amongst the players, NHL's best passer this year. And like he's also a 50-goal scorer. Jumbo Joe was like the best passer in the league for like the past decade there, and he was never netting 50. So it's insane, and I love it. So. Right on. So this is also a beauty of a question. Gene, we all know your trademark approach to hosting is your puns, and I've got to ask, was this always your approach, or was this something you were just born with, like it's part of your genes?
Well, at some point, very good. The genes will fade, I'm sure, like most people. So we'll see what happens or when that happens. I would say it was something that kind of developed for me. So the Oilers, I always tried to have sort of a light approach. It's entertainment at the end of the day. And Trevor, when I grew up, there weren't that many channels. But as you grew up, tens of channels turned into 20s, 50s, hundreds of channels that people have available to them. So I always tried to have a little bit of a light approach, but I would say it was after, so the Oilers made it to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final and unfortunately lost. That was a tough one. Watching Ryan Smith walk off the ice crying, that got me, right here, to see a guy who had devoted his basically entire adult life to Edmonton. That was challenging to do those interviews that night because, it was really sore to see, but, someone's got to win. And unfortunately, somebody's got to lose, and that was the case. But that next season, Chris Pronger was traded, and the team was really on a difficult run, particularly late in the season. And I thought, people have their jobs. They might have great jobs or bad jobs or good days at work or bad days. They come home and I'm going to pick 7 o'clock. They turn on the TV. They don't want more negativity and saying, they haven't won a game in 10 and their power play is 28th in the league or whatever the number. So I took an approach to have some fun and grab some positives and just kind of added water. And then they sprouted. So then that kind of grew into some props and that grew into some puns. And here we are, 16, 17 years later, still doing the same act. And I'm sure for some people it gets a bit tired, but I find it really enjoyable to try and make people laugh a bit, smile a bit. And Trevor, as you know, it's not about making fun of people. It's about having fun with people. And if I make fun of anyone, it would be me. So it's great. I love it. And my bosses have been fantastic at letting, I'll call it creativity. Some people might have other words for it, allowing that and just allowing me to have a good time on TV. I mean, at the end, it's only sports, right? It's supposed to be fun, light, entertaining. So I try and combine everything, if possible, as often as I can.
No, 100%, Gene. Like you have no idea like how many people just tune in to like listen and watch you. Like all my family, like my grandparents, like they love it. Like you crack them up, and it's unreal, man. I love it. So just keep crushing it. Keep doing that.
Thanks,
man.
Trevor. I do appreciate that. That it always makes me feel good because trust me, there are times I'm standing there in a hot dog costume going, exactly am I doing here? And sometimes I actually, when I do them, I almost never watch my openings. Like after I'm done them, I live them. I know what went right or what went wrong, and so I just I move on. And I guess thanks to social media, you're able to find out quite quickly what people think as well if they decide to send you a message.
Did you just dude us from outside the house?
Dudes, like gnarly down here.
No, you're crushing it, man. It's awesome. Don't stop it at all. But along with this kind of your content, how long does it come up? Like how long does it take you to come up with your content? Because obviously you can't plan too far ahead. And along with that, do you take sole credit for everything you've written over the years, or do any of fellow players or fellow coworkers give you a line that you can use?
Trevor, that's a great question because I cannot take credit for everything. What happens is when you do what I do, then people like to help you along, and they like to make suggestions, whether it's in person, whether it's via social media, whether it's friends, family. If you know somebody likes something, you try and help them out with it. So for sure, they're not all mine. And regarding how it goes, it depends. Sometimes it's real easy and you're like, oh yeah, I got this. I know exactly what I'm going to do. Sometimes, you get up in the morning, you go to the morning skates and something will click and you go, oh, I think I got an idea of how I can do something. Sometimes it's a challenge and you just kind of fight through it. It's like you grind away to come up with the theme that you think works best. So there's preparation, there's luck, there's timing. Sometimes it's just an off-the-cuff remark. Sometimes it's been planned because you know what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. So it's a real mix of virtually everything when it comes to when I do that kind of stuff.
Sweet. So yeah, I just we're almost done here. If you made it this far, obviously leave a like, drop a comment down below for good old Gene Principe. Just got some rapid fire questions for you, man, just to finish off this episode. So which of these former Oilers would you most like to see on Connor's line? Ales Hemsky, Doug Weight, or Ryan Smith?
I have to pick one?
Yeah, just one.
I'm gonna go Ales Hemsky.
Yeah.
Ales, yeah, I'll leave it at that. Otherwise, I might get myself in trouble. That's a tough one. You hit me hard right off the bat.
Yeah, I just did a video on this a few weeks ago, and that's who I picked. Those were my top three, but I think Hemmer would have just been unreal for sure. So next, when will we be seeing the beautiful flow? You bringing the beautiful flow back anytime soon?
It is coming back. I don't think it'll get to its sort of post-pandemic longevity, but I cut my hair the day before the first game of the season, October 11th. So I'm not cutting it till the end of the season. I might go through the summer and then cut it again before the next season starts or before training camp.
Right on. Okay, let's go. For the viewers at home, if you can share this, what kind of music are these boys playing before the game, and who's usually playing the music, if you know?
It is a mix of a lot of things. You've got 23, 4, 5 people in the room, so it varies. But for sure, the DJ is Darnell Nurse. He's been the guy that kind of spins the tunes and often will determine, like when the players come out for warm up. Recently, being about a month or so ago, I found there was a change to the music. But he is the DJ on the club, and it really goes from one extreme to the other, but you try and satisfy as many people as you can with a certain amount of songs that kind of falls into at least a somewhat popular category for everybody.
Awesome. Sweet. So I'm new to Edmonton. What's your favorite place to eat in Edmonton?
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? I'm going to say Italian restaurants. I know lots of Italians and I can't pick one because I might end up in cement shoes.
Okay.
Just kidding. But for sure. And I find on the road, we often go for Italian food and nobody needs to twist my arm in order to do that.
Awesome. Right on. Okay. Favorite city to travel during the regular season?
I would say New York.
New York.
There is something about New York. It is just, they call it the city that never sleeps for a reason. And it's just a certain vibe that's there that is, you kind of can't get anywhere else. So that would be number one. And then right close to it would be like a LA, Anaheim, or Florida, just because of the nice weather.
Yeah, it looks like you're enjoying it right there right now.
Yeah.
Awesome. Sweet. And then last question, Gene. This is the first time, I'm going to be in Edmonton during a playoff run. What can I expect?
Pandemonium.
Let's go.
Off the wall craziness.
Let's go.
Potentially the most exciting moment of your life, certainly when it comes to sports.
Let's go.
It'll be great and awesome.
Awesome. That's perfect, man. That's music to my ears. I love it. Right on. So thank you, Gene, so much for being part of this episode. If you've made it this far, as always, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. And drop a comment down below. Thank you so much, Gene, for being part of this episode. And I really appreciate this.
No problem, pal. Good luck with it.
Of course. Right on. Okay. Wow. How cool. Holy shit. Let's go, baby. Gene Principe, you've seen it there first. How cool is that? So cool. I'm kind of speechless. Gene, thank you so much. I already said it like 4 times. I'm going to say it again. Just a true pro. You're an absolute beauty. Thanks for being part of the show. If you made it this far, obviously, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. Just unreal. So, kind of crazy. Gene Principe on Above Average. Never would have thought that would have happened. And here we are. So, pretty sweet. So I don't even know what, I'm just kind of rambling on, kind of fanboying right now, but holy crap. So take her easy, guys. See you in the next one.